He's editor-in-chief of Breitbart News and a New York Times best-selling author. And on this podcast, he brings deep research, prescient analysis, and world-class guests. He's Alex Marlow, and this is The Alex Marlow Show.
All right, welcome to The Alex Marlow Show. I'm very happy to be here today. You know, I was kind of in sort of a so-so mood yesterday for no apparent reason. You know, that happens on Mondays sometimes, not always on Tuesdays. And then woke up today feeling more optimistic and got the blow dryer out. Hair came together nice, which for me is a treat. It's a rare treat when the hair seemed to cooperate. So we're off to a great start for the day. Really busy news day as always, just a massive pile of stuff. One of my goals for, it might not be a Q1 goal, but definitely a Q2 goal for this year is to try to start an email list where I'm giving you guys a taste of what my stack of stuff looks like in the spirit of Rush Limbaugh that I'm going throughout the show today, because I know it's just way too high today. I'm not going to get to everything. And I would like to share it with you, what I care about when I'm reading. So we'll work on that. If you like to see me in other venues, I was on a couple of cool ones yesterday. One of them's already aired, Dr. Drew's podcast. Dr. Drew, the addiction medicine specialist, board certified physician, and sort of doctor of the celebrities, who is one of the new, I would say, one of the new acquisitions we've had on the right in terms of getting someone who is a pop culture figure to be more of a conservative this day and age. We had a really interesting conversation, partially because I've been listening to him since I was a teenager, and I'll be 39 in a couple days. So it's been a long time and we've never met. So even though we're sort of neighbors in a way. And also I was on TBN, Pastor Alan Jackson's show. Those of you who consume TBN is really high production quality. It's a Christian network. They cover a lot of news though. That's what Huckabee's on. Really, really good stuff. Always a good conversation. They let you finish a sentence over there, which is nice for TV, particularly high-end TV. So if you're a TBN viewer, I'll be on Pastor Alan Jackson's show. I think that airs Wednesday evening as we're recording. I'm off to a late start today, and I will tell you why, because I'm deeply distracted by another fire that is raging just north of my home, just north of LA. This is called the Hughes Fire. It's at 500 acres right now, and it is at 0% containment, and the photos are scary. My neighborhood is blanketed in smoke right now. So looking positive for me at the moment. It's pretty far away. No evacuations within about 10 minutes on the road from me as of now. And the worst areas are probably at least 30 miles away, but not good. And you don't trust it, because how many resources do we have? We're going to be depleted. And Newsom's out there trying to make sure that all of his donors in the Palisades are in good shape. So not to say I fault him for his reaction at this point. His lack of preparedness, of course I fault him. But after that, he's trying at this point. But there's way too much to clean up. There's way too much to do. We're just not prepared for this. We're not ready for it. And this is why I said right away, we are in a active situation. You know, they say an active shooter. It's not just that people got shot. They're still going. We're in an active fire situation. This is the beginning of the windy season around here. And if we are not prepared, and if we don't have people deployed in a efficient way, if we have not summoned all the resources possible to get ready for this, then we are not going to be able to handle it, because there is just too many areas that are even more of a powder keg than the Palisades was. And not to mention Altadena, which got hit almost as bad as the Palisades, is just not as sexy for the cameras to cover that stuff. So not as many celebrities out there. So noteworthy. I will say in the Breitbart Fight Club today, I did a couple of things with Joel Pollack, who's my interview. We talked more about the fire and Trump heading to Los Angeles. Apparently, Trump is going to be doing an event with Karen Bass. So who wants to hear from Bass? That's my big question to President Trump. Newsom, maybe, because you could see the polls. The Democrats in the state don't doubt Newsom, and Newsom's going to run for president. And if he does well in the aftermath here, I think the Democrats will have a good narrative for him, even though our narrative will be that he screwed it up to begin with. But they'll at least have some sort of narrative they can cobble together. But Bass, she just comes off as a total idiot. She was in Africa, and then she couldn't answer basic questions when she got back, and she was sending people to URL. That's another soundbite we might need to keep around. Add that to the Jennifer Rubin one, Misty. But Californians, we were shocked because Florida has pre-deployed resources ahead of a natural disaster. Florida is right now getting hammered with record snowfall. I was supposed to interview Peter Schweitzer today, and I could not do that because he could not get to his studio in Tallahassee, Florida. Unthinkable to think he'd be snowed in Tallahassee. But DeSantis was ready and prepared, and he's great at this stuff. I've even refrained from calling him DeSanctimonious right now because some of you guys don't like it. I'm not trying to alienate you. I'm just trying to have fun. And I just think Trump nailed it with that nickname. But he's great at being governor, and he was prepared ahead of the storm and ready to go, and we'll see what happens. But it's where we are at our worst is when something comes up, some sort of a natural disaster where we are unfamiliar. People in Florida are very good about hurricanes, not to say that some are worse than others, but they're prepared because they think about it because they know that's part of the gig. And it's something that we're not all prepared for this stuff in various places. In California, all the new buildings are prepared for earthquakes, but are they prepared for fires? No, clearly. So we've got to think about things in terms of, I don't know where we got this as a society where we just assumed everything's going to work out. Historically speaking, things usually don't work out. It's not even that things work out most of the time. They usually don't work out. So civilizations crumble, people lose their lives, people get injured, people run out of money. We always operate where we're focused on the luxury issues. Like, are there enough four-spirit furries in our military? It's whether or not our aviation pilots have enough woke points. No, we don't care about that stuff. People are very stressed out now when they go to fly because they don't know if they're getting the most qualified pilots or if they're getting someone who is some sort of a hire from some sort of diversity quota. It's just a matter of time before something goes wrong, if it hasn't already. So that's why Trump's getting down to business with his executive orders. And one of the ones that he's rescinded in the last 24 hours is the 1965 executive order from Lyndon Johnson that began affirmative action in the U.S. government. I've been calling for it for the last couple of weeks. He needs to ban all DEI. I don't think it should just be confined to the U.S. government. I think it should go beyond that. But Executive Order 11246, the mandated government contracts take affirmative action against discrimination. Affirmative action became the phrase for race-based preferences, but it was really just parsing this quote from Lyndon Johnson that said that we're going to prioritize race, gender, ethnicity in hiring. And that is not prioritizing excellence. It's not something we can afford to do. If this fire was if this fire has shown us anything, is that we're not prepared for the fundamentals of governance. And I don't know if we'll ever be prepared. It's hard. It's hard to govern. It's hard to be prepared for natural disasters, acts of God. So we call them acts of God. It's greater than man. Man can't be totally ready for this stuff all the time. So we need to renew our focus on that and not on trying to fend off discrimination in the federal workforce via hiring people based off of race, gender, ethnicity, and whether or not they like to dress up like a furry cartoon character when they're in the bedroom. That's coming next, guys, if it's not here already. So Trump's rescinded that, and long overdue. I can't believe it's been on the books for so long. It's just so amazing to see how all the stuff Trump should have done the first time, and the fact that he gets this second chance, the fact that he almost got shot in the head, and now he's on pace for this historic presidency where he seems so eagle-eyed, so focused, so clear, making all the right moves. And the Democrats are so lost. They're so on their heels. They have no good moves. Really awesome. More awesome news. Trump orders 1,500 active duty troops to the U.S.-Mexico border. Just you love to see it. You can't get enough of it. He's reversing all of Biden's policies. He's going to start rebuilding the wall. But it is, I forgot to, I should tie this in. Trump did rescind that FAA rule that showed that we needed to have diversity in air traffic controllers. We don't have that anymore. So what he's doing with the border, though, to go back to the border, is all he is saying is we're going to enforce the existing laws. We're going to enforce the existing laws, and we're going to rescind anything that Biden did that he did unilaterally, ending Remain in Mexico, and allowing for all of these people to travel throughout the country with impunity as illegal aliens, so long as they followed some sort of thing that is fabricated, invented by the left to try to keep them in the country. So these are the fundamentals of governance. We're just going to focus on we have national sovereignty now. We have a border. 1,500 troops. People saw the instant he took that oath of office, people were at the border blocking people from crossing, and that's how it should be. So we're going to be seeing this in various iterations. But people who feel like they can just travel from in and out of the country as illegal aliens, what he's done is he's canceled travel for refugees that are already cleared to resettle in the United States. So he's suspending refugee resettlement programs. So this means that if we're not sure you're supposed to be here, it's closed for now. We're closed. It's closed up. Exactly what we want. He's also dismantling the deep state. He's launched a purge of the deep state, the DOJ, fulfilling a campaign promise. This will be some of the most important work I will do the first half of the year. I'll guarantee that to you. And I will expand on this at much greater length down the road. But dismantling the deep state within the DOJ is the highest priority, other than, those basics: securing the border, tapping the energy sector, getting the cabinet through. I mean, that's the next one on the list. And Trump's already started. And there are ways to do this that are, I think, very good. I mean, you get the most hardcore people in the top positions, and you make sure that they're looking out for who's underneath them. And that fulfills a lot of the issues. You can't have any weak people. You can't have any establishment people. You can't have anyone who's tolerant of the permanent political class in Washington, the permanent bureaucratic class. That's where it starts. And then you get those self-deportations. The next move that you do is you make people return to work. You make people go into work. This is what Marco Rubio is doing over at the State Department. He's making people return to work, and people's heads are exploding. Matt Boyle's got a report for this at Breitbart News. A source telling him, the State Department telling federal workers that remote work is over, and they all got to go back to work in person. I'll tell you why this is a big deal. It's a big deal because if you're going to go into work, you're going to kiss your family goodbye, you're going to put on a nice outfit, you're going to sit in traffic. You're not going to do that just because maybe you got some pie in the sky idea that you're part of some sort of fledgling resistance, that maybe you can do a little bit to undermine Trump and his agenda and Rubio and his agenda. You're not going to do that for that. You might be able to do that remotely from home. You can scheme online in between scrolling sessions on TikTok. That might happen. Once you have to go to work and you look people in the eye, you have to know that Trump is trying to fire you. He's trying to figure out who you are and get rid of you. You're going to be motivated to do that. You're going to self-deport. So you might have a tantrum first, but then you're going to leave. Not always, but mostly. So Trump is also fulfilling a promise to completely dismantle the National Security Council. Remember, the National Security Council is what caused Trump so many problems last time around. And I know this because my friend Dr. Gorka was a part of it, and there's so many different factions. There's the people who are establishment Republicans who are trying to keep this Washington status quo. And then there are people who are actively working against Donald Trump. You get the Vindmans of the world, the whistleblower, who's probably this guy, Eric Ciamarella. All these people who are just completely anti-Trump forces, I would argue anti-American forces. And they are operating as part of the National Security Council or various satellites, allowing them access to high-level information and allowing them to have to be able to police Donald Trump in a way that is frankly inappropriate. It's designed to undermine him. It's not designed to enhance. It's designed to undermine Trump and what Trump's trying to do. So one of the first goals, and Mike Waltz, in charge of Security Council, told us this at Breitbart News last month, and he seems to be fulfilling it, is he is removing any deep state agents that he knows of, and he wants to completely rework how the council operates. So this is a historic pledge. The media is freaking out. They're not happy about this, but there's nothing they can do. Trump has taken the shock and awe approach, and this is why it's going to work. They absolutely have no ability to fight Trump on all of these fronts. They just can't do it. And if they are one of the keys to this is that they have to tie Trump up in court. They have to figure out a way to block all these things. They have to find courts to take it up. And then they have to go through that process. And they're not going to be able to do that easily in order to stop his agenda. So they got to find the courts to back him up, and they got to go through legal processes. So when there's hundreds of things they're objecting to, and they're happening all at once, then they're just not going to be able to be organized enough to fight all these things at the level they have to. And the political willpower is not going to be there because they know the electorate's leaving them because of these tactics specifically. How great is that? I mean, it's all good stuff. All right. Not as good of a stuff. And you guys can help me with this because I had to bone up on some of this because I hadn't thought about this in years. But Trump pardoned a guy named Ross Ulbricht. Ross Ulbricht is the founder of something called the Silk Road, which was basically an online drug website and on the dark web. And Ross Ulbricht is a champion for libertarians and Bitcoiners because he proved you could basically have an entire economy, the section of the economy, I guess, operate with Bitcoin and Bitcoin alone and Bitcoin transactions, which I will note that's kind of cool. But what happened in that economy? A lot of it was the drug trade. It was mostly what it was. There's other stuff as well, but that was kind of the main thing. But he became this libertarian champion. He was put away, I think, like 10 years ago. And he got put away for attempting to hire a hitman to have someone killed. But he hired a Fed. And then the Fed staged the murder of the guy Ulbricht wanted to kill. And then Ulbricht celebrated it allegedly online. I don't have all the details committed to memory. But that seems very bad to try to hire a hitman to do vigilante justice, and you accidentally hired a Fed, and then you were happy when the guy got offed. So that seems like something you'd go to jail for a long time. And Trump has let him out, and I don't get it. So you guys explain this to me because this one does not seem – I get we like Bitcoin in general, and we're generally libertarian about stuff. And you know my position that I really celebrate individuals who are bold and change the world and all that stuff. But if you're a drug trade pioneer who is serving, I guess you're serving 2 life terms for a conspiracy to do X, Y, and Z, particularly get a guy killed, seems bad. So maybe some bad guys want to convict them. That's possible. But I don't fully get it. And I would like your help because is this one of these things where Trump just got worked at a lunch that someone just convinced him, someone really passionate about this stuff? Or is there something more to it that I'm not seeing? aloha@alexmarlow.com if you would like to share with me why I'm wrong. I'm not deeply locked in on this position, so I'm convincible, but I don't get it as of now. All right. One thing I do get, mixed on it, but I get it. Trump's going to go to Davos. The World Economic Forum is taking place right now. I get it because he is the leader of the world right now. And a lot of people are singing his tune right now. They're singing his tune. I checked in with Frances Martel, our world editor at Breitbart, before the show because I wanted to see what's going on around the world. And she told me that Syria's new leader is jihadi, of Al-Qaeda affiliate, has described Trump as the man who will bring peace to the Middle East. So truly insane if you think about it, given the history of Trump and the Al-Qaeda and how he's tried to dismantle them over the years and drops bombs on them if he needs to. But they're still optimistic that Trump will bring a more peaceful Middle East for everyone, which is ridiculously cool. It's ridiculously cool that Trump is conceivably better for all sides. Better for the good guys and even better for the bad guys, which is fine because we're the party of peace now. We discussed this on yesterday's show. We're the party of peace. The Democrats are the party of the Cheneys and war. All right, Putin and Xi Jinping had a phone call, and largely what they do is they talked about Trump. So a lot of it's about trade and protecting each other diplomatically. So wouldn't this be something if, yet again, Trump had a much tougher policy on Russia than Barack Obama did? I wrote about this extensively over the years, talked about extensively, don't need to rehash that. But Trump was much harder on Russia than Obama and harder on Russia than the Clintons, as Peter Schweizer's reported over and over throughout the years. And then we were told Trump is Putin's puppet. So be interesting to see if Putin's not happy about Trump being there because he's not as weak. He can't roll over on him. So I am interested to see how the Putin-Russia and Xi Jinping connection, how that evolves during Trump's administration, because they would be a very powerful adversary if they really lock in on anti-American policies in lockstep. So we don't want that. So Trump's got to figure that out, but I'm optimistic he will. Okay, Zelensky is basically acting like Trump's mouthpiece at Davos. So Zelensky is a savvy guy. And that's why I have a lot of admiration for a lot of the stuff he does. I think he's grifting us. I think he's stealing our money. I think he dresses like a slob. I think he's dishonest, all that stuff. But I admire that he was able to basically stand up to Putin. And I think I would have, if I was in his shoes, I would do what was necessary as president of my country to take care of my country. That's his job. So he's doing that enthusiastically. So he is at Davos saying that Europe cannot expect free security from America all the time, especially while they're buying Russian oil and gas. And Europe needs to get serious about its own energy security in order to be fair to America. So if you want to get Trump off our back, you got to start thinking about America. So cool. Francis also has some stories coming up on how Latin America is melting down, very concerned about Trump and Trump bullying all the communists in the region. More on that if you want to go to Breitbart, catch up. All right, so I got a really interesting email from listener Sky King, who says he's super interested in priority gold, and he should be, because now is perfect time to buy gold. There's a lot of volatility going on. It's going to take a while for Trump to implement all of his policies, and one of the best ways to protect your wealth is with gold, specifically with priority gold. And I told you guys that I'm not going to bring advertisers to the show that I don't fully back and think are doing terrific work. Priority Gold is one of those groups. We worked with them for years at Breitbart before they joined this show. And he asked me, when you give out a number, what does that mean? Freedom at 24999. It's this simple. You take out your phone, you send the text message, type in the word freedom, and the number is 24999. You don't need 7 numbers. You don't need 10 numbers. You don't need a country code. All you need to do is text freedom to 24999, and Priority Gold is going to send you a free wealth preservation guide. It's going to help you shield your savings. And even though Trump is going to be able to reverse a lot of the bad stuff Joe Biden's done, it won't be all of it, and it will not happen overnight. So now is the time to lock in. Let's diversify your wealth. You've got options to do things like gold IRAs, which are really smart to do in terms of tax purposes. And they've got all sorts of information once you go over there. You go to PriorityGold.com, and you'll learn so much about why gold is a great place to invest. These guys are good. They help me out a lot. Incredibly communicative people. They want to help you do the smartest things with your money. I genuinely believe that. So you text freedom to 24999. If you can't handle that, go to PriorityGold.com, and then you'll be supporting a couple of good causes. You'll be supporting yourself, and you'll be supporting the show. Can't thank you enough. Check them out. So meanwhile, while we're at Davos, John Kerry's out there and he's calling for all sorts of bans on CO2, and we're going to try to ban cars and all that's nonsense that he's usually up to. So, which is, for me, I think it's fascinating to see this, because all these ideas just got rejected, and you don't get to Davos by a sailboat. You can't even get there by a choo-choo train. You got to fly, and they all fly private, and then they all drive cars, nice cars around Davos. It's such an absurd thing. The Iranian leader was talking to Fareed Zakaria, and he was talking about how Trump could potentially bring peace, even though he pulled out the JCPOA, the Iran nuclear deal. So really cool stuff. Trump is in charge. And yeah, Kerry says we need to get to net zero oil and gas by 2050. All right, dude, you start, buddy. I wrote about this in Breaking Biden about how I have no record to suggest that Kerry does most of his meetings on Microsoft Teams or on Zoom. Here at the show, we use a program called Riverside. It's very nice, very easy to use. You could use it. And then you could do all your meetings on that, John. And then you could record them, share them with people. All would work for posterity. So good stuff. Trump's in command in a major way. One place where I'm seeing I'm really concerned, and this came up on yesterday's show, and it seems to be getting worse. I went on a jag about how Senate Democrats in particular, but Republicans are not organized on this. That the Senate committees have been delayed for getting all these confirmations up, and we need to get moving. And I'm not talking about just draining the swamp. I'm talking about national security. I'm talking about the basic business of governance, which the Democrats consider important. At least I thought they did. So Pam Bondi has now had her hearing delayed 1 week for the second part of her hearing. She gets a couple hearings. So she's going to skate. She's completely qualified. She's no negatives on her resume. She's the attorney general, the second biggest Republican attorney general office in the country. She's a shoo-in. Let's get her in. Hegseth had just cleared before the show a procedural vote with all 53 Republicans supporting. So, I mean, that's a done deal. Let's get him through. So the Democrats are blocking this. It is mostly on them. There is apparently one anonymous Democrat in particular is holding it up. We figure out who this is, holding up some of the process. So we'll get to that, but we got to keep an eye on the bad guys here because they're lost. They don't know what to do. And when they don't know what to do, the resistance, everyone got immediately after Trump won last time. You got the Antifa going in the streets. You got the pink hats with the women, and we're going to all do the sex assault talk. We can't do that now. We can't do all the sex assault talk now because Democrats are, worse than Republicans now, this stuff. So let's get some Diddy conversation going. Let's talk about Diddy. So they don't have their marching orders, and that means that they're going to try some stuff out, which is truly absurd. And this is just grandstanding and obstruction just for being bad sports, just being sore losers. They can't hold it up forever. They're just holding things up because I don't know. I really don't know why. There doesn't seem to be a point, which is why we need to put our pedal to the metal and get things through. Think about Doug Emhoff. So there's reports there's exclusive in the Daily Mail. The Daily Mail is a tabloid, but they get a lot right. They don't get everything right, but they get a lot right. But they're saying that basically Kamala Harris and Doug Emhoff's marriage is in turmoil now because Harris is not happy with Emhoff scandals, which perhaps derailed her political career. So he, as you might recall, was accused of slapping a woman and stepping out on being unfaithful. Domestic violence, banging on the nannies. Not to mention, which I think is more relevant in a way, is paying $80,000 in hush money that was never prosecuted. Had a non-disclosure agreement with the nanny, paid her off, so her story didn't come out. The exact scenario that played out with Trump and Stormy Daniels. Unlike with Trump and Stormy Daniels now, I have deep doubts that they actually did what Stormy Daniels alleged, having spent some time on this recently. Stormy Daniels' story does not add up to me at all. And Trump's always denied it. He hasn't denied it as vociferously as he's denied some other things, but I have deep doubts about Stormy Daniels' story to begin with. Trump paid her an NDA so it would stay out of the news. Not that it happened and he was just trying to cover it up. He just didn't want to have to deal with the scandal. So which backfired, obviously. He paid her the settlement and he had the NDA. He didn't pay her an NDA. You guys get what I'm saying. But ex-girlfriend coming forward saying Emhoff was violent against her. Recall people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez gushing over him as the ideal man, brimming with masculinity. He's a chubby guy who steps out on his women with the nanny and then allegedly slaps them. Catherine Rampell, the Washington Post, one of the more interesting mainstream media reporters, said Doug Emhoff is a sex symbol and women's fantasy man. He's a chubby cheater. He's kind of a dork, too. But he's rich. Ladies like rich, right? That's good. Most of them. So, I mean, that's what they said. I learned that from Office Space. Chicks dig dudes with money. That's what I heard. Lawrence taught me that from the movie Office Space. You got to see it. All right. So they can't do as much of the Me Too. They can't do as much of the war on democracy stuff that they did because the Russian collusion thing was a hoax. We all rejected all the lawfare. So what are they going to do? They're just going to try to hold stuff up. We'll also see certain people pop up and try to have their hero moment. And we had one. Trump showed up at a national prayer service right after the election. And an Episcopal priest who I guess speaks on behalf of the L's, the G's, the B's, the T's, the Q's, 2 spirits, 3 spirits, the furries, the trisexuals. They'll try anything. Someone named Marianne Budd, who I don't know how, Bishop of Washington, D.C. Bishop of what? Whatever she is, she came out and she made a statement to try to become the momentary face of the resistance. You tell me if this is working. Tell me if this is working.
In the name of our God, I ask you to have mercy upon the people in our country who are scared now. There are gay, lesbian, and transgender children in Democratic, Republican, and independent families, some who fear for their lives. And the people who pick our crops and clean our office buildings, who labor in poultry farms and meatpacking plants, who wash the dishes after we eat in restaurants and work the night shifts in hospitals, they may not be citizens.
So the camera, if you're watching on the streams, you're seeing Trump rolling his eyes. You're seeing J.D. Vance looking very sleepy, rolling his eyes. These guys this is such a waste of time. The nerve on this woman just lecturing Trump on stuff. We all thought of this stuff. You see, I used to wash dishes with illegal aliens. I have nothing against them personally. It's just we don't want them here because of what it represents to our country. It's not that we don't. It represents a lawlessness. It represents a disrespect for our country and for the American citizens when we import a bunch of people so that it disrespects them as well, a bunch of second-class citizens, indentured servants essentially, so that the corporations can make a little bit more. We're not impugning their humanity. We don't like the system. The system is not working for us, not going well. We're not getting stronger. We're not getting more cohesive. And a lot of people are broke. A lot of people in this country in the working class, even in the middle class, who are broke, paycheck to paycheck living. We're trying to think about America first. And we're not all hopped up on all the G's and the B's and the T's all the time. We've talked about every second.
Or have the proper documentation. But the vast majority of immigrants are not.
Proper documentation, right. They broke the law to get here. So do we have to keep overdoing it? We rejected all this stuff at the election.
Immigrants are not criminals. They pay taxes and are good neighbors. They are faithful members of our churches and mosques, synagogues, wadara, and temples.
It's just all preachy. It's all pablum. There's no substance to it. Obvious old messaging. Here was Trump's reaction. He was asked about this because Trump has been taking press coverage. He had a huge gaggle in the White House and the Oval Office. He's into it. He wants to debate the press, and he should, because he's got the moral high ground now. This was a post-sermon. Check this out.
Mr. President, what did you think of the sermon? What did you think of the sermon?
What do you think of the sermon?
What did you think of the
What did you think of the sermon?
What did you think? Did you like it? Did you find it exciting?
What do you think? Do you like it? Do you find it exciting? Any of you who've been with me for a while know that my favorite approach when you're debating the left is not to debate. It's actually to ask them to defend their ridiculous positions. Because I feel like that's the best jumping off point, is you get them to try to explain themselves and they can't. And then you are all of a sudden on a playing field where you can actually start getting through to them on your points. So being angry doesn't work. And even just a dunk fest where you're just throwing down with a brilliant speech, I feel like that it's premature. The first move has got to be, what did you think of it? Did you think that was interesting to hear about the illegal aliens and we're supposed to be all praying together in a moment of unity? And we're going to talk about the G's and the B's. I don't think that was a good idea. So that's his take.
Not too exciting, was it? I didn't think it was a good service, no. Thank you very much.
Thank you, press. Thank you, press.
They could do much better.
I didn't think it was a good service. They could do much better. Really good. Really good. Let's see. So this bishop got invited on The View. Star turn for her. Let's see how that went.
You seem to have more fearlessness than anyone in Congress right now, ma'am. What made you decide to use that opportunity for this message, or didn't you have any?
See, their idea of fearless is you just recycle talking points and you spit them at people so you get accolades from people who are already on your side and are never leaving. Joy Behar has never come into our side. So I don't regard this as fearless. I regard it as obnoxious and inappropriate. I'll tell you that if I was in her position and a Democrat came in, I would give a politically neutral sermon. That's what I would do. I wouldn't dunk on them. If that was my job, was to lead a prayer service, it would not be to lecture the people who are captive in the audience and cannot move. But they can't resist that opportunity because they believe politics is above all else, even above God itself. That's how the left operates, even the alleged bishops of the left.
Didn't you have any apprehension about it?
Thank you, first of all, for allowing me to be with you today. My responsibility yesterday morning, was to reflect, to pray with the nation for unity. And as I was pondering
Nothing more unifying than lecturing the newly sworn in president of the United States on all the things you don't like about him.
What are the foundations of unity? I wanted to emphasize respecting the honor and dignity of every human being, basic honesty and humility. And then I also realized that that unity requires a certain degree of mercy and compassion and understanding. And so knowing that a lot of people, as I said, in our country right now are really scared, I wanted to take the opportunity in the context of that service for unity to say we need to treat everyone with dignity, and we need to be merciful. And I was trying to counter the narrative that is so
phony. There's no dignity. There's no dignity to any of it. All right. I got more Trump taking on the media. Let's play a little bit of this.
Would agree that it's never acceptable to assault a police officer.
Sure.
Right? So then if I can, among those you pardoned, DJ Rodriguez, he drove a stun gun into the neck of a DC police officer who was abducted by the mob that day. He later confessed on video to the FBI and pleaded guilty for his crimes. Why does he deserve a pardon?
Well, I don't know. Was it a pardon? Because we're looking at commutes and we're looking at pardons. Okay, well, we'll take a look at everything. But I can say this. Murderers today are not even charged. You have murderers that aren't charged all over. You take a look at what's gone on in Philadelphia. Take a look at what's gone off in L.A., where people murder people and they don't get charged. These people have already served years in prison, and they've served them viciously. It's a disgusting prison. It's been horrible. It's inhumane. It's been a terrible, terrible thing. I also say this. You go to Portland, where they wrapped police officers, shot police officers, nothing happened to anybody. You go to Seattle, where they took over a big chunk of the city and people died. Portland, a lot of people died. Wait a minute. And you go also, take a look at Minneapolis, because I was there and I watched it. And if I didn't bring in the National Guard, that city wouldn't even exist today. People were killed and nobody went to jail. So these people have already served a long period of time, and I made a decision to give a pardon. Joe Biden gave a pardon yesterday to a lot of criminals. These are criminals that he gave a pardon to, and you should be asking that question. Why did he give a pardon to all of these people that committed crimes?
President, the leaders of the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers were...
All right, so that was good. So that was exchanged with Peter Alexander, one of the establishment media guys. And there was a moment where he kept trying to interrupt Trump, and then Trump shut him down. That was great. Asking about the J6 pardons for the violent criminals. They're going to try to find narratives. They're going to try to pick them apart. They've done this successfully in the past. It's interesting. I just had a flashback to George W. Bush's presidency, where he would give press conferences. And I remember thinking a lot about how he would give these answers, and I think most people would give a better answer than that. And it's very frustrating because he's not articulating the position well. And I think I recall that from John McCain and Mitt Romney when they were our nominees. They would give answers. I think these are very good answers. We have the right approach, but we don't necessarily know how to explain it. That was a terrific answer from Trump, because I would have started with the Biden family. I would have said that, well, why you care about any of the J6 prisoners? The president of the United States family just basically copped to grifting off of the country for the last decade, 11 years. Blanket pardons. We don't know what they did. Pardon them for all of it. It's the most corrupt thing in the history of the U.S. presidency. So let's talk about that for a second. Anyone I pardon from J6 is it's small fry, small potato. But he did something better. He went around and he basically, without name checking people, said all these Soros-funded DAs across the country in the major cities have allowed the cities turn completely lawless. And they're letting murderers off the hook with nothing. So you go investigate that, and then you can ask me about a guy who got tasered and then had to be in a S-hole jail for a couple years. And now we're looking at it. He didn't even say we're giving those guys a blanket pardon, because some of them should be commutations. Some of them should not be total pardons. If you were violent against police officers, I don't think you get a full pardon. I think commutation's good. Time served. So you can't be violent against police officers. Now, for all the people who got ushered into the Capitol by an open door and were not violent, those people should be pardoned. All the people who are still getting harassed to the very last minute. The Biden administration was trying to get neighbors to snitch on one another, to use security cameras, footage, to try to identify people so they could bring them up on charges. All those people need to be pardoned, and their trials need to go away if they haven't been convicted yet, and we should all move on. So yeah, obviously some of the guys who are violent against the prisoners in an ideal world, they don't get totally pardoned, but it's none of that matters. What matters much, much, much more is the Biden crime family and what they did, and the fact that in the meantime, while they were letting themselves get away with who knows what, they were going around harassing legal citizens, overcharging them, trying to bankrupt them, trying to make it so they can't have a job, trying to ruin them, trying to make them at minimum lose their social media presences, all because they showed up at a rally and the rally got out of hand. So, but I like Trump's answer. Very good. Very nice. Very nice to see a good answer. All right. So much more going on in the news. Trump supports Elon Musk's effort to buy TikTok or Larry Ellison. Interesting. I want TikTok to go away, so I hope they don't buy it. So a trans TikToker has been jailed for strangling and abusing a former girlfriend. That's stuff that goes on TikTok. And all of this is distracting people from getting stuff done. We're teaching people to be addicted to their phone. We're teaching the phone-based life. Not interacting with one another, not communicating with one another. You don't have to have a coherent thought. And all of it's fake. It's all staged, all acting. People projecting this phony vision of themselves to the world. And it is virtual reality that is replacing reality for younger people. And yes, I know that if TikTok goes away, it'll just get replaced by something else, maybe something else Chinese. But the fact that the Chinese government owns this is step number one why it's a problem, because they're harvesting our data and they're going to use it. But more importantly is we're torturing ourselves with these things. It's a deeply addictive thing, these phones. And it's not making us happier. It's not making us smarter. It's not making us more unified. It's a colossal problem. And we need to start taking it head on. And just letting Musk buy it is not gonna help. All right. I got some fun stuff, but I'm gonna run out of time. So let me get some email. I got a lot of email going. Let's see. What do we got? Jim Mackey emails. Alex, I agree. I do your show at 1.25 speed because you do speak fast, but mostly because you have a script. I do not have a script. I script nothing. And people speaking off the cuff pause a lot, so I begin interviews at 1.5x and adjust up. I agree. I do the interview shows faster. I asked earlier on the shows, at what speed do you listen to me? One day what we'll do, this is really cool. A lot of the streamers do this, is you can see the screen. If you guys saw my screen, you see I basically have a stack of Breitbart articles in front of me. So I've got probably 30 articles out today. There's 2 tweets. I've got something from a entertainment website, and I've got a Daily Mail story, and the rest are Breitbart articles. And so that's what I'm looking at. And you can tell when I'm reading from it. I don't read from a script. I just speak incredibly well. That's why they let me do shows like this. So when you practice many thousands of hours, you learn how to do it. No, I don't read scripts. I'm not saying never, but I'm saying that 98% of the show is not scripted. But I listen to myself on 1.25 speed, and I just was curious what speed you guys do. I think you can do 1.5. I think faster than that, it sounds like I'm slurring. And slower, I get bored. Even when myself at single speed is a little boring to me. So if you feel like you want the show to go faster, then hit that 1.25, do it. And I like speeding up the interviews just a little bit more. So that's great. So Jim, you and I are on the same page, my friend. All right. Let's see. What is this? Why can't I copy and paste my emails anymore? All right, next one. This is Elise Castellanos from Plano, Texas. Alex, Am I the only one who sees a giant R on Melania's stunning inaugural ball gown? Of course there is a giant R on Melania's stunning inaugural ball gown. She had multiple remarkable outfits. I did read a little bit on yesterday's show from John Binder, Breitbart News, who writes our fashion notes column, who has been profiled in the New York Times for his fashion acumen. And we are very close contact with Melania's team. I correspond with Melania's right-hand guy pretty frequently. They're big Breitbart supporters. We're very grateful for that. And we're huge fans of hers, obviously. She's a fashion genius. She does everything intentional. And obviously the dress looked like it had a very cool, stylish R on the front. I would say it was subtle and stylish enough. It wasn't so in your face the way, AOC did that year, that she had a bunch of writing on the back of her dress, whatever that was, it was attention getting, but it wasn't really that fashion forward. It was just sort of obvious, just designed to go viral. It wasn't really beautiful. Melania was able to do it in a way that was very beautiful, but also clearly had an R. And she's sending a signal to all of her friends and colleagues in fashion and in pop culture that Republicans where it's at right now. There's absolutely no doubt that was part of her thinking. Do I think that's the focal point of her life, being a Republican? I don't. But I think she's mostly with us on the issues. I really do. All right, next one, Dave. Alex, I completely respect the position of pro-lifers, yet I am pro-choice, and yet I find myself on the right of issues besides abortion. The party is a big tent. We should let people know there is room for this stance within the party. What are your thoughts on that, Dave? Very complicated subject, Dave, and thank you. And I'm incredibly sympathetic. I grew up in LA, so there's not a lot of pro-lifers out here, I would say, even amongst the Republicans. I would say a huge chunk of the Republicans are not pro-life, so to speak, and they're certainly not zero abortion people. So here's my take on it. On a personal level, on a Christian level, I'm very negative on abortions. And if I could wave a magic wand and no one liked abortions anymore, that would be my ideal. I would do it. If I had a genie in the magic lamp and I had a bunch of wishes, that would be one of them. But operating in reality, I do think the conservative movement, the Republican Party, is best off doing a piecemeal approach. I struggle with this on a moral level. Because morally, if you take a piecemeal approach, doesn't that send a signal that you're willing to tolerate a certain level of abortions? It kind of does. I admit that. And I don't like that because I don't think that abortions are good. I do find them immoral, even very early ones. And let's put it this way. I would not want to have that conversation with God down the road if I was involved in one of those things. And I don't mean to say that in a cruel or callous way. I'm just saying I don't want that to be my burden, and I don't want that burden for you. So those of you in your life, the adoption is a much more moral option if you conceive a child that you feel like is not meant for you to raise. So that's my take. But how do we talk about these issues? Do we demonize? Do we focus on early trimester abortion? Do we focus on rape, incest, life of the mother? I think for the time being, we don't focus on that. I think we focus on that there were thousands of third trimester abortions every year. I think there's even more than that if you go back to, let's say, 5 months. So I think that making sure that there's no late-term abortions, cutting it off at the heartbeat bills, I really like those. What's the heartbeat bills? 6 weeks or so, somewhere in there? 8, 9 weeks, whatever it is. I don't have a committed memory at the moment. But very early on, I like that because I feel like we can win the argument with normal people who even consider themselves pro-choice that once the baby's got a heartbeat, it's very hard to argue it's not a life. I find it impossible to argue it's not a life. How do you argue it's not a life if the baby's got a heartbeat? I don't see how you do that. So I like focusing there. I think there's a lot of good we can do chipping away at the issue in that way. I also like framing it up as a states' rights issue. And then if you're in a conservative state, then you can have laws that are more strict. It is the force people, if you want to abort your child, you should be energetic enough to fly to California to do it. So if you're in Alabama and they're not allowed to have an abortion there, but you really want one, and you got to hop on a plane and go to California, you should have to go through that ritual. You should have to go through all of that humiliation and all that doubt and all that angst you're going to have. You should have to do that. Actions have consequences. It shouldn't be a free ride. This world is not a free ride. And if you make mistakes, you've got to deal with it at an emotional level. We all have. It's part of the human experience. So I don't sympathize with you if you want to just roll out of bed and get an easy abortion right before brunch on a Sunday. I have no sympathy there. So personal level, I'm pro-choice. I say that. I always caveat anything I say about abortion on a political level with that, because that's how I want you to live for your own peace of mind, for your own heart, for your own consciousness. But in terms of a political thing, I don't think the country is really ready for a talk of a blanket abortion ban, at least statewide, at least nationwide. So focus on those late trimester abortions, focus on those heartbeat bills, and focus on trying to make a case, a reasonable case, the way I'm making it. That's what I think we should do. And if there's someone in your life who does not consider a fetus or an embryo that is pre-heartbeat the same as a one that's been in the womb for 8.5 months, I understand. I don't agree, but I understand. We were all that clump of cells, and it's at one point, and then now we're having this conversation here via the airwaves, via high tech, and that's a beautiful thing. It would never happen if there's an abortion somewhere along the way. So important to note that, and a great topic, great way to end the show with something really meaningful to chew on. All right, aloha to alexmarlow.com if you want to correspond with me, questions, comments. Super hot news week. I wish I got to everything. I did not get to everything. Thanks to our wonderful producer, Misty. Thanks to all of you for telling 10,000 friends and family members about the show. It is the #1 way to help do what we got to do around here to grow and thrive. And I'll talk to you tomorrow.